Welcome back to another episode of Adeptus Paternus. I have with me my friend Jake Nelson, who lately has been playing a lot of GSC and crushing it at a recent Teams event. He went 3-0 on an RTT, admittedly before the changes that happened recently, but I didn't ask you about your game, so I don't know how much it affected that. How would you say that change would affect your play?
Oh, we're talking about the update, the balanced data slate.
Yeah. No more unlimited aberrants.
I don't think it would have probably mattered too much against the guard. I brought back one aberrant unit twice, which I still could do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then other than that, I brought back like an acolyte unit that stood on an objective that they didn't really need to stand on. Against Drukari, I don't know that. I'm not really sure if anything. I think one unit came back. That was probably about it. And then, so I probably would have got more stuff back actually.
Yeah.
Although not that much stuff died, so maybe I wouldn't have. And then the first game was against demons. And I think I mean, maybe I get like a unit less back or so, but it probably just changes the differential by like one or two. But I could plan for it a little better, so maybe it actually changes in my favor. Hard to say.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know that they were like super impactful for my games.
I know that the 10th edition 2 losses that I've had to GSC absolutely would have gone differently, because in both cases I played against 3,500 points ish. So this
it can definitely happen. I've had those games, but I think I've also had those games where you bring back like 2 units of acolytes, so now I get 5, so it'd be an improvement in those, you know.
Absolutely.
So just being able to plan for it a little more consistent.
I think it's a great change. It's so much better.
Yeah, it was just, it feels bad for both players before, because either I'm not getting my army roll or you're playing against 3,000 points. So
yeah,
this is going to be more fun. I
actually got a lot of sort of local clout because I predicted the change to orcs and the change to GSC.
Oh, nice. I kept telling Ethan I thought that it would be really cool if the Genestealer cult Detachment was Genestealer cult and Tyranids, but I was like, but there's no way they'd ever do that. and then this is what we got. So
yeah,
no clout, just Ethan laughing at me.
Well, that's
predicting it, kind of.
That's basically the level of clout that I was referring to for myself anyway. So, but speaking of which, let's get into it, because that is the topic of the conversation. The detachment is called Final Day. If you know anything about the lore, then actually this makes perfect sense, because it's when the Tyranids finally show up to gobble everybody, including their cultists. And the detachment rule is called Psionic Parasitism. At the end of your movement phase, for each Tyranid synapse unit from your army, you can select one friendly Genestealer cults unit, excluding Pure Strain Genestealers and the Patriarch, which makes sense for the lore, and one friendly Tyranids unit, each within 9 inches of and visible to that synapse unit. If you do, the Genestealer cults unit from your army suffers D3+1 mortal wounds, and one model in the selected Tyranids unit regains up to that many lost wounds until the start of your next movement phase. Each time a model in the selected Tyranids unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. In addition, Tyranids units from your army have the following ability: Catalyst Aura. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this unit, each time a friendly Genestealer cults unit makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the hit roll. And you are allowed to make this all work to, in a 2,000, basically take half of your points as Tyranids. But not all Tyranids. It's Tyranid, Vanguard, and Vader units, excluding Aircraft, Broodlord, and Genestealer units. And Tyranid models cannot be your Warlord.
Yep. And so basically what that is you can take, I heard it described as like, I think it's everyone with wings, except for the aircrafts, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then like snakes and then like lictors and things like that, all the infiltrator stuff.
I mean, which are all pretty good units anyway, so.
Yeah, definitely. But you're not taking any, like, you're not really taking, I guess, shooting out of Tyranids. You're not going to have Tyrannofexes, Exocrines, Biovores, things like that. But those wouldn't really synergize super well with the aura that you're giving out anyway. So
yeah, exactly. And I mean, GSC players have learned to make do without that kind of shooting anyway. Obviously, would have been, I suppose, nice, nice to have, but
Yeah, it'd be cool to have some durability, but that's okay. We don't need it.
I mean, you still do get your. I mean, this is a GSC detachment, so you still do get your army rule of bringing back now a set number of units. And I mean, there are of course ways to bring back models with a banner. So even if you are having some of your models getting munched on by the NIDs, you can mitigate that to a certain extent.
Yeah, definitely. You can stick some neophytes on an objective. They get eaten for D3+1, and then they'll just be back. And you didn't really lose any models. It's pretty big. And I think another interesting thing is the Tyranid aura that it's giving out for +1 to hit. That's just, there's no caveat on that other than just Genestealer cult unit. So you can get that for your vehicles, in melee, in shooting, whatever. So, that's really a powerful rule. If you look at Host of Ascension, which is one of the popular detachments, their ability is on the turn they come in from reserves. You get sustained 1 and ignore cover. And sustained 1 is basically the same as. I mean, it has higher upside, but it's pretty similar to +1 to hit in a lot of ways. And you get this every turn now, and you get this on units that you wouldn't get it on before. You can get it on your Ridge Runners, for example. So now maybe you give them Survey Augurs to ignore cover instead of Spotters. So now you can have really both parts of that rule in a sense. So it is a pretty powerful rule, and now it's going to work. It's going to work in melee, and all the units in Tyranids that you can take don't really have trouble getting within 6 inches of the enemy. So it works pretty well together.
I mean, that is, I think, a nice thing about it is that it's not a particularly hard thing to proc. I mean, there's plenty of Tyranids trash that you could send up to proc this, even if you're trading it away. Yeah, exactly.
Full opponent's army right there is just gargoyles, and then it's also the timing on it is just while an enemy is within 6. So even if like say you throw your gargoyles up, you kill something, your gargoyles can fire and fade. And now they change what's within 6, and maybe you got lucky and you can now move them into a spot that they couldn't even get to before because enemy unit was there, and now you got something else with +1 to hit on it. So
yeah, or you move up, you give that buff, whatever they're near gets shot to death, and then you could charge into something that happens to be near something that you're going to be charging your aberrants into and get it again with the aberrants.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. And the same thing for the psionic parasitism, which is the rule for the Tyranids is you don't have to actually heal. You can just kill some Genestealer cult models and get +1 to hit.
Yeah.
So if you need that somewhere, it's a great thing to have.
Yeah, and I mean, it just says D3+1 mortal wounds, though I guess.
Oh, it's also and that also just says Genestealer cult unit from your army. So I mean, you could do it to like a truck or something. Like
that's true.
You really care if you take an average of 3 mortals to a truck that's like behind a wall or something.
Yeah,
not that much. Yeah, so
now
I think there's a lot of freedom in these rules.
I mean, it is the one restriction that kind of sucks is that it's just a model in the unit, gets the wounds back, and it's not returning dead Tyranids, so you can't trade some acolytes for more gargoyles or something. But lictors are already very annoying to kill, and if somebody got one to 3 wounds, and this is just a way to get the lictor back up to tops at almost no charge, that can be backbreaking in certain circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's also, I mean, you run the danger of if you take a winged tyrant, which we'll see later, is probably something you're going to take in this detachment. That guy's not the easiest to kill. You get him down to like 2-3 wounds, and now he's just healing. He's just healing up a bracket again, and now you get to try and kill that guy again, which will be super fun.
So I also noticed the way that this is worded might have been a mistake, but it says for each Tyranid synapse unit from your army, you can select one friendly, cult and one friendly Tyranids unit. and then you do this. There doesn't seem to be any restriction about doing it multiple times with the same Tyranid recipient. And so if that's the case, it's just for each Tyranid Synapse unit. So if you had a couple nearby, and I mean the Synapse unit can of course be the same, the thing that is doing the munching, you're always visible to yourself. So that you could be returning a bunch of wounds back. It doesn't. That's actually, I wondered if that's a mistake or intended.
So you're thinking you can do this multiple times for each Tyranid Synapse unit?
That seems to be what it says, because it just says for each Tyranid Synapse unit, select a friendly GSC and a friendly Tyranids unit. If you do, suffers the mortal wounds. The Tyranid unit regains that many wounds and gets +1 to hit. So actually, technically, if you do this twice, you can get multiple pluses to hit to counteract if something has stealth. So that's pretty nice, actually. I mean, that's kind of shocking.
No, it definitely, like rules is written, that's what it's saying right now.
Yeah, and
because they have for each Tyranid, so you know each Synapse unit can only do it once, but that doesn't mean another Synapse unit can't then put it onto them, or or they both stack onto a third unit.
Exactly.
That's kind of funny. I did not think of that, but okay. So yeah, even better. You get they get your prime down to 1 wound, and then you heal him all the way back up to full if you feel like it, and he has like +4 to hit or something.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty darn good, because I mean you're taking a lot of GSC trash for sure. Like there will be no lack of things to munch on. And it is also very nice that this is not in your command phase, it's at the end of your movement phase. So you can manage this much more easily. You don't necessarily have to plan around it, because often in the thick of things...
Oh, yeah, you can just fix it if you need to, right? That's kind of...
Yep.
If you're not, a lot of times I do find in my command phase, I'm not quite, I'm not within 3 inches for that Tech Marine buff or something, I'm 5 away or something like that.
And I mean...
I can just fix it.
Exactly. And it's one thing if you're dealing with ranged situations, but when you're dealing with melee, you often are, you're charging out of distance of the thing that you want to be. And there is no restriction here also that you can't do it if anything is in engagement range. No such restriction. Both of these things could be in engagement, and you can, all 3 things can be in engagement.
You could kill yourself out of engage range if you wanted or something.
You could totally kill yourself out. Oh yeah, you could basically.
You could do stuff like that.
It's like falling back.
Yeah, that's true. And then you can still shoot. You could. I mean, this is probably not very impactful, but it's just kind of, I like thinking about stuff like this. Is you could kill your unit, and then put them back in with Colt Ambush. Not the same turn anymore, which in the past you could have definitely done it the same turn.
Yeah.
Now it's got to be a subsequent turn, but if you just have a unit in the back that is kind of out of the game, maybe you stick it in an objective and they don't really need to be there, but they don't have any way to get anywhere else. Maybe that's a way to like kind of reposition them.
Yeah, and you could use it as a fallback, essentially, the equivalent. If you have just 2 things that are in engagement, kill those 2 things off. I mean, hopefully, I suppose for your sake, you manage to that they die. I mean, you might just I guess D3+1. You guarantee 2 things. Okay, and then if you can then shoot and charge. It's not quite a fallback move because you don't get extra movement out of it, but that's still there are going to be situations where that is very useful. And the other thing is, there are, of course, GSC things with feel no pains, so they could feel no pain from these mortals, and and it's still.
You could do it to an abominant, and then he dies and gets back up on a 2+.
Yeah,
out of engagement range. That could be kind of fun.
There's a lot to do here, and I think that I think a GSC detachment should be like that. There should be lots of weird plays that you're not telegraphing per se.
Yeah, GSC has always been Army. I feel like where I spend half an hour explaining my rules. Like we always kind of start a little bit late on clock and stuff, but
Yeah.
and if they've played against it before, it's usually fine. But that first time someone plays against it, there's always like a moment where it's like I'm literally explaining this to you. I'm like, no, if you move within 12 of the color morph, if you move within 12 of the color morph, now
Yeah.
9, thankfully. But when everything starts going down and they get overwatched like basically 3 times in a turn, 4 times sometimes in a turn, they're like, wait, what's happening?
Yeah.
You can only explain it so much.
Yeah. This, I think, well, just from the detachment rule, there's not much that your opponent, there's not a gotcha here with your opponent. So
No.
But we'll see. There might be something else. Why don't we move on to the enhancements?
I think, if someone goes, can you fall back or something? Can you fall back and shoot? And you say no, and then you do this. That would be pretty scummy. But
yeah,
as long as you do that, you should be good.
That would, I suppose, kind of be angle shooting.
Yeah, that'd be a little questionable, but
yeah.
So we got enhancements.
Yeah. The first one is Synaptic Augur for 15 points. Now this goes on a NIDS model. Each time the bearer would regain 1 or more lost wounds from the detachment rule, it regains up to twice that number of lost wounds instead. I mean,
it's kind of cool. I think the fact that we can, at least so far, just do this twice to the same unit.
Sure.
Maybe this isn't as impactful, but it could be worth taking if you got 15 points. It's definitely not bad.
No, for 15 points, I think it's perfectly reasonable if you have the 15 points left over. From the Necron's perspective, there's something kind of similar in the Awakened Dynasty where you can put a 4-up Feel No Pain on something, and it does make that unit, annoying, but it's not like it changes how you're building your list or anything. It just...
Yeah,
it's a nice to have.
Points. Did you have that enhancement slot?
Yeah. All right, moving on. Enraptured Damnation for 10 points. Now this one's for a GSC model. Enemy units cannot fire Overwatch to shoot at the bearer's unit.
Yeah, that's really good. Genestealer cult units die to Overwatch all the time. So
yep.
Just I lost 3 Genestealers to 2 Sisters of Silence overwatching me the other day. So
man.
So if I could have this for 10 points, I would definitely have this for 10 points for sure.
Yeah.
So yes, please.
That seems like especially just for that low cost, it seems like an auto take. It gives you so many opportunities to do things that you wouldn't other. I'm not looking forward to playing against that.
Oh yeah, your Overwatch is always fun.
Yes.
All those sustain that you have on those Necron flyers and
exactly
Monolith and everything. Yeah.
Well, I can't Overwatch with the Monolith because he's Titanic.
That's true. Yep. I always am scared of that Titanic Overwatch.
Yeah.
For a turn until
you remember.
You can't do that.
Well, at the beginning of 10th you could, and then they changed it. All right, Vanguard Tyrant for 25 points. Now this goes on a Winged Hive Tyrant. Improve the strength and AP characteristics of melee weapons by 1. Yeah.
I think very good.
Of course, AP is the big one. Do you remember offhand what the because I don't play NIDS, what the base strength is of the
it's pretty big. The monstrous bone sword and lash whip is 6 attacks hitting on 2s at strength 9. So now you're strength 10, which is a huge breakpoint. And it's -2, now you're -3. Again, that's pretty big. Now and 3 damage. So it's this goes from and it's twin linked, so it's already like a decent profile. But going to that strength 10, that's pretty. That's just better.
Absolutely.
It's definitely not. It's still not like the craziest thing ever, but I think you probably want a Hive Tyrant anyway, because it just gives you kind of this durable character that GSC doesn't really have. He's pretty fast, movement 12, T9, 4-up interval. So I think he's definitely worth taking. Now you've just made him that much better.
That's a good break point for sure. If it was, because now you're also wounding Terminators on 2s. There's 9 to 10 is probably the most impactful in the game, but I suppose there could be an argument 10 to 11. I don't know.
Yeah, I think probably 9 to 10 comes up more often because you think about like all transports, or not all, but most transports are T9, right? So now you're winning them on threes. A lot of like main battle tanks and monsters and stuff are 10. So now your fours, and you have with the twin link re-rolling. That's actually really consistent now too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean the meta boogeyman right now is Necron's Star Shatter Assault, and everything in there is either T9 or T10. So.
Oh yeah, that's big. You'll be hitting them all +1. So on super twos.
Yep. All right. Last one, Inhuman Integration for 20 points. This one goes on a GSC model. Weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit have the sustained hits 1 ability when targeting an enemy within 6 inches of 1 or more friendly Tyranids units.
And this is probably the best one, right? I would think, like, if we're thinking back, I was talking about Host of Ascension and getting ignore cover and sustained, and how +1 to hit is basically, it's very similar to sustained. Well, now you just have sustained on top of +1 to hit because you're targeting enemy unit within 6, and again, it can be melee, shooting, whatever. So that's just a good ability right there.
That's so good, and I mean 20 points for that is a bargain, honestly. I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely.
The thing is, I think people look at like the GSC data sheets and might be unimpressed, but they haven't actually ever been in. I think they haven't ever played against GSC, and they kill already more effectively than they look like they should because of the buffs they can get. And this is essentially building back up to that, and much more consistently too. I mean, you don't have to come out of Deep Strike for this; you just get it.
Yeah, that's the big difference with this detachment versus Host of Ascension, which has kind of similar buffs there.
Yeah, no, I mean,
but yeah, also, this is great on a Primus who has reroll hits for the unit he's leading. So you can do it, and you can do him as a melee or with some like metamorphs, or you can do him in a neophyte hybrid unit. Just getting a bunch of shots out of there. So
yeah, this looks nasty. I mean, and it is nice because you can just guaranteed get this every turn without having to pay a CP. You just play the game and you get this. All right. Well, let's go on to those things that you spend CP on, known as strats. Number 1, Hyper Ferocity. This is in the fight phase, a GSC unit. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets an enemy unit, reroll a wound roll of 1. If a friendly Tyranids unit within 6, reroll the wound roll.
All right, 1 CP, reroll. Once,
after you've got sustained hits, +1 to hit.
Yeah. Yep, that's, there's this unit called Genestealers, and they can get dev wounds from the Primarch, but they have no way to reroll wounds. Except, now they got reroll wounds. So that is pretty sick. With, I think, that's like 40 odd attacks coming out of that unit, plus the Patriarch on top.
Yeah, and there's so in the detachment rule they excluded the pure strains from the buff, so you won't be getting the +1 to hit, but there's no such exclusion here. You can use it on those pure strains. That just seems...
Well, you can. Pure strains are a Genestealer cult unit, so they do get +1 to hit if they're within the Tyranid unit.
Oh, they do get that. But you just can't eat them.
Yeah, they do hit on 2s, so like they don't necessarily need it. But maybe somebody has like, there's not a ton of -1 to hit in melee, but like,
there's ways to hand the buff out
or something, and they've got some Nurglings around, or any Chaos Army with Nurglings around.
Yeah,
There is something out there, so it's never bad to just have an extra +1 to hit, right?
No, absolutely.
So yeah, and this is also, I mean, this is great on Aberrants who are strength 7. Strength 7 rerolling is pretty consistent into like anything now.
Yeah,
getting about like 50% conversion into any toughness in the game. Maybe, I mean, even if you just needed to take like a random wound off and you had like neophytes or something, just still not, probably not worth it. But maybe if it's all you got, it's all you got sometimes. So
It's
I'd be
only
happy
one
to
CP.
have it. Yeah, exactly. It's only one CP is the other thing. It seems really good.
It seems very good. And the other thing worth pointing out, I think, is that there's a lot more. If strength is greater than toughness, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Like, I've seen a lot of these detachments that have that. Again, most notably, Star Shatter has that, which is one of the big durability buffs. That doesn't help against things that are re-rolling wounds. If in many ways, it's almost better to be lower strength with the re-rolls than to be higher strength and then have to, suffer that -1 to wound. On the other hand,
It's true.
even if you are, here's the thing, even if you are wounding on 3s, if it really has to die, perfectly reasonable to pay the CP and get the full wound rerolls.
Yeah, and honestly, even if you can't get the full wound rerolls, rerolling once to wound for a CP
is not bad.
If you have a bunch of attacks, it's still pretty good. Like, I wouldn't say no to that.
No, I think
you don't have to use it, but you've got it.
Yeah, this is one that I think people sort of will say, oh, you use this every turn. Often there's turns you don't have to. You're reliably killing something anyway. But if you go a game without using this, I'll be shocked. Yeah,
it's also, and again, it just has really no restrictions on it. Like, you can use this on a rock grinder.
Yeah.
You can use it on anything. Right? If your truck really needs to kill like 3 guardsmen, like, maybe probably not, but maybe, right?
Maybe, and the tank shock failed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you some weird Hail Mary play, maybe it's all you got, right?
Yep. All right, next one, Psy Surge. Start of any phase, 1 Tyranids unit from your army until the start of your next command phase. Increase the range of your unit's catalyst ability by 3 inches. Each time you use this stratagem until the end of your next command phase, you cannot use this stratagem again. So it's like an Overwatch.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It's just another. We were talking about earlier about how the timing on the buffs is pretty forgiving, and this is just another. This is, again, you're like, I couldn't quite get there, or maybe I got overwatched or something and I lost a couple units, a couple models, and I just need to extend that aura. Psy Surge will do it, and 1 CP that's going to last you for potentially 2 turns of the game. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Depending on the timing you use it. You can use it in your opponent's phase too, if for some reason you need a +1 to hit, maybe they charge you and something in melee you need it. I don't know.
I get, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't think it's game breaking or anything, but
yeah, I suspect
when you need it, it'll be nice. And yeah,
I suspect it's one that people will be like, I forgot about Psy Surge. That would have helped, but I never use it, so I forgot about it.
yeah. That sounds like me, actually. Now that you say it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Maybe early on, you have some weird play where they've kind of backline stuff, and you run your gargoyles forward, you fire and fade, and you have a 9-inch aura, and now, you've gone 27 inches from your deployment zone with your aura, and they didn't see that coming, right? Something like that. That's, I don't know. Again, there's weird cases, but yeah, it probably won't come up too much.
Yeah. All right, next one. Avenge the Star Children. This is your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy unit has shot or fought. 1 Tyranids character unit from your army that was destroyed by that enemy unit this phase. And then you can use this strat even though that it was just destroyed. It's just bookkeeping there. Effect until the end of the battle. Each time a GSC cults model from, I guess that was repeating myself, GSC model from your army makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the hit roll and add 1 to the wound roll.
Yeah, seems cool. If that flyer that we're taking goes down,
yeah,
there you go. We got him. I think you're probably taking Death Leaper in this detachment. We didn't really talk about that earlier, but
sure. Yeah. You are.
You'll do it. Yeah, I think so. What else? I think so it was wings, so the Parasite or Mortrex will get it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You can be, I guess, you can kind of send these characters out there onto objectives early, and if they want to come kill them, you get +1. And they're not, Death Leaper is not nothing to kill, so
No,
they
he's
may have
not.
to send like a real unit.
I have
Same, yeah.
I have definitely failed to kill Death Leaper multiple times when I really wanted to with something. So my experience, I don't actually have an army that has anything like this. I don't like. There's Tau. I forget which one is it. Monka, which has something like this.
Yeah, I think they get full rerolls against the
yeah.
Yeah.
My experience has been that like it can. I actually think that +1 to hit. More importantly, the +1 to wound is actually even better than the reroll hits, because often you're wanting to put it on something that is like really hard to kill anyway. And maybe, I mean, in this detachment especially, +1 to hit is not really, I mean, you're probably already getting that in many cases. But the +1 to wound roll, especially when you have the opportunity to reroll the wound roll, like that might make it more impactful. But honestly, my experience has been that these kinds of things are not especially impactful, simply because they are kind of easy to play around, and even if like it happens, there's no guarantee that like the CP will actually that it'll matter. I don't know. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Like, yeah, there will be a situation where you might use it, but it's definitely not like an every turn or even probably every game kind of stratagem.
No, I mean, and I literally was running the kind of list which was the thing that you would think would be vulnerable to something like this, like just a small number of expensive units, therefore getting a buff. Like, therefore, I am going to be killing you with something that I don't want to have die, and so presumably getting a buff against it would be a good thing. But still, the whole point of like bringing a really expensive durable unit is that it probably won't die even if you do start stacking buffs on it. But again,
yeah, I can see that.
+1 to wound and re-rolling wounds, that does start to add up. So maybe it's I think a case by case basis. I don't think that you have to feel compelled to keep a CP in the back pocket for this, and I don't think you need to plan your game around like I'm going to bait this out. But you do have to warn them.
I think the time it comes up is when you have maybe a character holding something on a flank, and they go to kill it, and then you go, oh wait, I don't really have that much over there to deal with it. But if they all had +1 to hit and wound, maybe I do have enough. Maybe my one killer morph that's over there now is going to wound you on on 3s, on 4s, on whatever. My Ridge Runner that's over there is now going to be wounding you on 2s, like things like that. And you also, you're right. Like generally, you're going to have that +1 to hit already from your Tyranid stuff. Maybe you don't have. Maybe now you don't have to send that Tyranid stuff over there.
That's
so it's just
true.
like one less resource to devote to it. But yeah, I definitely think it's pretty situational and not not a common situation probably.
I do think that is probably actually the best use of this, is not necessarily trying to stack a buff on something really important, but instead to make a weak flank a little less weak.
Yeah. Just give you that insurance when you need it.
All right, next one, Divine Imperative. In your charge phase, 1 GSC unit that has not declared a charge yet. So this is the less forgiving kind of timing. Select one enemy unit within engagement range of one or more Tyranids unit until the end of the phase. Each time your GSC unit declares a charge, you add 1 to the charge rolls, and you can re-roll the charge rolls. So I guess the timing does make sense. I'd forgotten what this one said.
Okay. Isn't the wording on this a little weird? Like, I mean, not in a way that like it matters at all, but like, so you pick one Genestealer cult unit and you get +1 to charge if a Tyranid unit's in engaged range, right? And you reroll the charge. So that's like a cool buff. But it says until the end of that phase, each time your unit declares a charge, there's one time. It's just, there's not each time. It's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
There's only one time. It almost is tricking me into thinking like, can I have multiple units use it? But I'm pretty sure I can't, because you're picking one. Yeah, it's just each time your units. Yeah, so somehow if I can declare 2 charges with 1 unit, I'll get this buff both times.
I mean,
But you can't. So, but
yeah,
yeah, no, it's a good. Seems good. Like I would, I'll use this for sure.
yeah. There's definitely
Yeah,
times. I mean, because I guess you might. It's not exactly like spending the CP on a reroll because maybe you wouldn't have needed to reroll it, so you're kind of spending it for the +1 to the charge roll.
yeah. But it's kind of nice because sometimes you're like, oh, I want so if you're given the option of like, oh, you can have +1 on this charge or you can have a reroll on this charge, which do you do? You have 1 CP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which do you want? Do you want to? Are you going for that? Well, let's assume it's a 9, right? Because you're coming out of deep strike or something. Do I want an 8 or do I want 2 tries with a 9, right? And I don't know. It's just like how lucky are you feeling that day?
Yeah.
And in which way you're feeling lucky. But this is both, so you don't have to make that decision. You're just like, yeah, well, if I failed it, I was going to reroll it anyway, so I'll take +1 to charge on top of it. So I think it's just it's a good CP. Like you're getting 2 things for 1 CP.
And
You do have to have your Tyranid unit in engagement, so it's not just it's not just totally free in that sense. But yeah, you'll do it when you'll do it.
I think the other nice thing about this is if you have 2 critical charges, you can technically now reroll both of them. And that can be really important because otherwise it's like you're trying to then decide which one's more important that I want to do first, so I spend the CP reroll on that one first. This just allows you to do both. I think that's
absolutely.
really nice. Also, there might be times where maybe it's a guaranteed charge, or not necessarily guaranteed, but like already a pretty high likelihood. But what you're really aiming for is I don't know, like they're close, like they're in their deployment zone, but like kind of like not that deep into it. They're kind of on the edge, and you got behind enemy lines. And the way that you're going to score it is if you get a good charge so that you can actually get to the other side of them, and you just want to get that extra distance. Or maybe you want to like figure out a way to pile into something else. There's times when you want to charge longer.
Yep. No, definitely. Yeah. Tag a bunch of stuff. Get onto an objective that they thought was kind of untouchable. And you also, you have a Tyranid unit has to be engagement range anyway, so you could probably block out a lot of what you would be able to hit with the charge. So now a lot of your guys are kind of floating.
Yeah.
And go, you have less real estate that you actually need to occupy when you do roll your 13-inch charge.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the other thing. Like, let's say it's a fights first unit, right? That you're charging at. And so you could charge it with some Tyranid's trash to block out most things. And then, like you have a lot more play getting that +1 on your charge for how you want to string things out so that you can, do the one model or whatever that like touches the fights first unit or touches some, I don't know. I said it wrong. But I think you understand what I'm saying, that like it can help with that too.
Definitely. No, yeah, it's a cool, and you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. The main thing is just when you have 2 units charging, the first one probably doesn't use this, right? And just, tries the easier charge, maybe uses CP reroll, and then the second one is going to get this.
Yeah.
And hopefully you hit both of your charges. And, I do find like if I don't fail any charges with Genestealer Cult, and this is going back to like 8th edition, I usually win my games. So
yeah.
If I'm making my charges, then usually I'm winning those games. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what the math is on an 8-inch rerollable, but it's better than 50%.
Yeah, I think it's in the 60s if I remember. Because I think 9-inch rerollable is like 40% or something. And I think 8 goes from 40 up to not double, but
significantly better. Yeah,
it might be like 2/3 of the time, something like that.
I mean, certainly not something I'd love to plan around, but like it's a good it makes a Hail Mary a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the fact that you just get both is huge.
Yeah.
Going to darting attacks.
Darting attacks. Your shooting phase or your charge phase, a Tyranids unit, you can fall back, shoot, and charge. So not only can you munch your way out to kind of pseudo fallback, you can actually just do it with a Tyranids unit. And I mean, generically good.
It's always nice to have.
It's always nice to have.
I wish it was Genestealer cult, but
yeah,
I'll take it on Tyranids too. Yeah. I do like how they're giving kind of like one of each to between the enhancements, really everything in this detachment. You got one thing for the Tyranids, one thing for the Genestealer, so it's pretty nice and even.
Yeah, I mean, I can. There's always ways that you can use this in that people might not think of, like, if you like wrap a rhino with some gargoyles, and so it can't fall back without taking a desperate escape, so they're not getting shot at except by the rhino, and now you can fall back and charge something else, and all of a sudden your gargoyles are like across the board at a completely different place. I mean, there's good players will find ways to get some real shenanigans out of this.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Gargoyles and gargoyles are gonna get a lot of they're gonna get a lot of play in the detachment. So
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
you're gonna love it.
Even if they're not falling back and charging, just the falling back and shooting means that they're getting their move, shoot, move. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Oh yeah, stealing objectives left and right.
Yep. All right, last one, resistance tunnels. End of your opponent's fight phase. Now, this is nice that it is either GSC or Tyranids unit that you can... It's only one, but it's no restrictions otherwise, aside from the normal, you got to be outside of engagement range. Pick them up, put them in strategic reserves.
Oh, that's really good. I mean, the fact, there's just not within engagement range. That's it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, there's already, because pretty much everything in GSC that matters has deep strike, so it's, you could do this with something that's deep striking. A lot of the, gargoyles and other things, it is a shame that it's only one thing. It's always nice when you can do, say, two things, but I don't think you should get greedy.
That's the hypercut player in you right there.
And Death Watch.
Like, I would like 4, please.
Yes.
We'll take 4, yes. Yep. Yeah, no, it's really good. I mean, my first thought actually was Ridge Runners, because I was playing that Outlander Claw detachment quite a bit, and they have a strat, pull, I think Ridge Runner or truck, or maybe it was vehicle or mounted or something, but you had to be within 9 of the board edge. So I immediately was like, oh, I can do this with Ridge Runners, and I just can be wherever I want. So again, just no restrictions, and not only that, it's no restrictions in 2 books. Like, that's pretty.
Yeah.
There's just the possibilities are endless on this one. Really cool.
I mean, 1.5, I suppose. The one thing I feel like I should
for sure.
I feel like I should point out, it just so that people are aware. As someone who played a lot of Hypercrypt, this does mean that if you are going second, unless the unit has Deep Strike natively, it can't come back turn 1 because the restrictions on strategic reserves still apply.
Oh yeah, that's a good shot right there.
Yeah, but if it has Deep Strike, then it started the game on the battlefield, and GW has now explicitly clarified that yes, it can come back turn 1. So going second allows you to pick up a lot of different things and put them somewhere that your opponent really doesn't want them to be. And another thing, because there's a lot of different kinds of uppy downy, but the kind where you just put it in strategic reserves is actually my favorite, simply because it does not mean that you have to bring them back next turn. There are plenty of times where you might just want to leave them in a bit later, maybe to rapid ingress, maybe to just have a piece that can come in at round 5 or you don't know when you're going to need it to score a secondary. So.
Yeah. And they did actually. That is another thing they changed about the new cult ambush rules. Is before you could just once something died and came back, it didn't have to come in. It could come in right then, or it could come in whenever. And now it does have to come in the next turn. So, this gets you a little bit of that freedom back
Yeah.
Or you just throw something up and you save it, you know? Maybe a secret mission or something. Turn 5, who knows?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like GSC has a hard time scoring the, battle line secret mission if they really want to already, but
yeah, they're generally pretty good at primary, so
generally pretty good at primary already.
You're probably not hurting for the secret mission, but maybe on Purge or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, GSC does not love Purge, but I think the other thing about it is that like people will often, if you pick something up and leave it off the board for a while, they'll just forget about it. And it's not like anyone's trying to, and I can remind my opponent like, hey, this is still off the board, FYI. And it's just, I don't know if it's like they're thinking too hard about it that they then, when you look at something and then you crash into it, but it's kind of like that where,
there's just too much time.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is also like how long can you really screen your entire backfield, right? That's usually what it is, or the board or whatever. Can you leave half your army back to screen the backfield for 5 turns? Like eventually you gotta, the game isn't really played in your backfield usually, unless you're like sisters with 3 exorcists. So, eventually you're coming out, right? And if I can outwit you, then all the better for me. Which now you can.
Yeah, but I think it's. I mean, just to kind of sum up the strats, I mean, and you have more experience with the army, but from my perspective, it seems like a nice suite. It doesn't focus too hard on like all in on the damage. It gives you some extra shenanigans that you can do. These all seem really good.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone. They're nice, I don't think they're not broken or anything. There's no strat that you're looking at and you're like, oh, wow, this is the one you use every turn, and that and that's kind of nice. You don't want to be like, well, okay, this is gonna get nerfed, right? And I don't think this detachment is overly broken in general. Like it seems fairly balanced. It's got a lot of abilities, a lot of possibilities, but it's not like, oh yeah, immediately this is like straight to S tier or anything, but I think it's definitely very playable. CSC, I think, remains to be really strong. So maybe it is S tier, and just because GSC is that good, but I don't think I would go that far with it.
Yeah, I have a hard time gauging GSC simply because it is the faction that is personally a tough matchup every time, just because I tend to play armies that have a hard time with massive waves of OC. So I always even when right after the codex came out, before the change to blips, I was not so afraid of GSC. As soon as that change came in, even before the MFM, which dropped the points a lot, I was like, holy cow, like this is friggin' scary. And then I subsequently, like the next day, lost to GSC. Admittedly, it was a mission that was very favorable to GSC. It was, I think is it O, where it's the burning the objectives, plus you can terraform, and the one where battle line can action and shoot. So it's just how do I compete with that?
Yeah. Were you playing flyers?
I was.
Did you go? Who went first? All this stuff. If the GSC goes first, I feel like it's really rough.
Yeah.
Like
they went first. They went first.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So everything's terraformed before and done terraforming before you get to bring in your damage.
Yeah.
That seems great.
That
seems really cool.
It was a tough one, and it was also one where pretty much everything came back every time. It was still close. Yep. I think I only lost by 15 points, which also
not bad,
yeah, not bad. I mean,
I would take it for sure.
I did make a mistake, and if I hadn't made that mistake, I actually could have won in retrospect. I just I moved the Silent King in such a way that he was able to get him, tar pitted, so that I wasn't able to pick him up and try for that command insertion secret mission. But regardless, I think that GSC is super strong. I think that this is, to me, it seems like this is viable as a way to play. If it's, I don't know if it's the absolute best. It's always hard to predict, because especially something like this where you're introducing another half of a book. I mean, how can you possibly on the spot think of every single, weird little exploit? You can't. There's gonna be stuff in there, I'm sure, that somebody's gonna be like, haha, nobody thought about this, but this is ridiculous, this combination.
Oh yeah. No, I'm looking now, like, Von Ryan's Leapers are they're kind of interesting in this, right? Like, they've got Infiltrator, Stealth, Fights First. They have they heroic for free, 70 points for 3 of them. Like, that's cool.
That heroic for free actually seems really useful here to get, to get something now. Because let's say that they're out of the, that 6-inch aura. This would be a way to get them in. I mean, that's...
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep. Just change it up. What your opponent thinks they charged a certain way, and now...
Yep.
And yeah, you're never going to remember all the million things they have. You got your... you can't take Warriors, I guess, but you can take the Tyranid Prime, so you could lead Gargoyles. That's probably not worth it. But yeah, no, there's all kinds of stuff. I think... No, not Venom Thropes, but yeah, I mean, I think, like, you're probably not taking 1,000 points of Tyranids, would be my guess.
No.
Just looking at it, The Flyrant's 200, so you probably, you toss him in there. Maybe like 2 units of Gargoyles.
Mm-hmm.
Probably you probably don't want to go. So maybe you get away with one, but that's 170. So you're with your enhancement, you're at about 400 right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think from there, I don't know if you go 3 lictors, but
there is a certain number of lictors, a non-zero number of lictors.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess 2 at least, so that that puts you at 520, and then and then from there you're probably looking pretty good. Maybe you take a couple neurolictors or something, throw around some battle shocks, maybe get some CP there, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of stuff. You can get. Oh, here's another thing. If an enemy unit is within 12 inches and battle shocked of a neurolictor, you get +1 to wound, and that could be pretty good with your Flyrant, right?
Yeah.
That could be real nice, because now you're strength 10 with +1 to wound. And so really that's actually +2 to wound in a lot of situations. That could be real nice.
That is, yeah. I mean, so you were going from essentially, wounding a Rhino on 4s to on 2s re-rolling. That's good. That is genuinely good. I mean, I don't know. I won't be surprised if somebody wins a GT with this. I could totally see it. I think this has legs.
Oh yeah. Well, it's GSC. I'm never surprised if somebody rocks up to LVO and is top 8 with this.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, oh wow, okay. Not gonna be me, but I'd be like, oh okay, wow, that guy's pretty good, but I'm not too shocked, I think.
Oh yeah, no, and nobody's ever prepared for it. Nobody ever has the reps into GSC, and that's just already a huge advantage.
Yeah, I think since I've started playing them, I don't think I've lost a competitive game with them. I'm not sure that I've actually lost a game, period. I haven't played a ton, but they've been pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I have beaten them a couple times, and I have lost a couple times. In particular, who I lost to, I don't want to just say it was, okay, the first game at BAO was 100% because he made every single cult ambush, and because it was a very close game, and
that'll do it. That will.
If I could keep it close against, 4,000 points, then yeah. But the second time around, was genuinely, I just got outplayed because I made a mistake. It was still fairly early on, and with secret missions, it was my first RTT where secret missions were a thing, and I just hadn't fully thought out how to do that. So
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
No, they're pretty good at they're pretty good at that. Yeah, I did play. I mean, I did actually think one of the tougher matchups was Hypercrypt, just because they score really well. They have good strats against what you're trying to do, and you're trying to do a lot of chip damage.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of not immune to chip damage, but like they're usually pretty decent against that with like resurrection orbs and stuff like that. If you don't actually finish things off, they're coming back, and then your chip damage was kind of useless. So like, yeah, I did have a 10-10 into Hypercrypt, and I brought like everything back. I don't know that it mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Because I literally just kept putting stuff in the same spot, and then it would die because there was just nothing else to do with it, really.
Yeah.
But he was hitting his secondaries, I was hitting my secondaries, and then we just kind of pushed on primary.
Yeah.
For like maybe it was 11-9, but it was, it wasn't a big win for sure. It was very drawish. And then, yeah, and I think both my games in the Hypercrypt were similar. Like, I think the other one was like a 12-8.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so it was, within 10 points or within 15 points.
Yeah, it's just because both times that I was playing against GSC, I was running 3 planes, and so that's just a lot of points invested in 0 OC.
Yeah, and they love it.
Yeah, literally because of GSC, that's why I started running a Tesseract Vault, simply because it is extremely durable. It has a massive amount of like chaff killing firepower. It can easily, like that unit in Ascendant, Day of Ascendance or whatever it is, which as soon as you shoot at it, then it goes up, and then it heals up, and then it comes back and gets the like lethals and sustains and all that stuff. So you really need to be able to kill it in one activation, and very few things can. I mean, a Tesseract Vault 100% can every single time.
Oh yeah.
So, and
Tesseract Vault, that has does that have the indirect precision gun or something? Is that a thing?
It has.
I remember.
It has a precision gun and it has an indirect gun, and then on top of that, it has 4 Tesla spheres, which is a total of 24 shots that are like sustain 2, strength 7, AP 0, damage 1.
Oh yeah, sounds cool. Yeah, sounds pretty good. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, and the indirect gun is also like it's D6 plus 3 blast, like AP minus 3. So it's like even if you're not caring about the indirect, you just shoot that at a horde and you're killing a bunch of it with 0 saves.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
And it's a square foot.
Cosmic fire.
Yep. And then there's the flamer, but actually it kind of can depend sometimes. Like if you really want to kill the character, it actually does make more sense to just do the times arrow.
Yeah, do times arrow. Yeah, I can see that.
But it also, the thing that I think GSC hates the most is it's a square foot. Like you can't, it takes up so much space. It's like, okay, well, half of the board you can't really come on anymore.
Oh, so I can't go underneath it, huh?
Well, and you can't deep strike within 9. So
yeah, that too. Well, I never deep strike much. That's the other. That's the weird thing is I've always started most of my stuff on the board, which I think is the right way to go, and it throws people off because they're like, "Oh, you're gonna deep strike a lot, right?" I'm like, "No, not really. Like I have maybe an acolyte unit, maybe 2 in deep strike. Like I'll get stuff back in deep strike, but we're starting, we're driving at you in trucks and stuff."
Well, I mean, my perspective again was the full expectation that everything was going to come back, and so being able to at least hold those deep strikes off would have been nice. Just planted in the middle of the board, and it's like, well, you pretty much literally cannot deep strike onto any of the midfield objectives. You just can't. It's too big.
Yeah, and I think T12 with the 2-up save and 24 wounds and a 4-up invul is not necessarily the profile Genestealer Cult loves,
No, it's actually
it is pretty rough.
Yeah, and I mean we're kind of going far afield, but it's the profile that nobody loves nowadays because the Eradicator brick is gone. So nothing, like literally outside of some melee threats, like 6 Sword Bros and Hellbrecht still kill it, but like in terms of shooting, nothing reliably kills it in one activation at all anywhere.
Yeah, and it's not like 6 Sword Bros and Hellbrecht are the fastest thing in the world, so.
No, and you know what?
Probably a little bit control.
You know what they hate? A damage 6 dev wound gun that is anti-character and precision plus blast that is flat 3 damage. It's like it's perfect for killing sword bros. You can tell Clint, or you can ask Clint about it. He hates it.
Yeah. Sounds like he would have a good time with it.
Yeah, he has killed it before, but he hasn't ever won against it at all, ever.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, yeah, if you're trying to kill something like that, you're probably not killing too much of the rest of the army, so
No.
it's not helping you either.
But we're rambling now, just shooting the breeze on a GSC episode. But yeah, I think, I mean, all right, what are your closing thoughts on this detachment?
Oh, I'm definitely going to play it. Probably, probably not at LVO just because, learning a new detachment in that time. It's going to be tough, but
Tell me
excited,
about it.
Yeah. I'm, but yeah, I think, kind of what we talked about. You're taking probably not the full 1,000 points of Tyranids, although you can, if you've got, if you've got a little Tyranids and a little GSC and you want to put them together, it seems like a great way to do it. Everything there's so little restriction on your GSC stuff that everything gets better from being in this detachment. Which I think a lot of the other GSC detachments really aren't like that. You've got the vehicle one that only really buffs vehicles and mounted. You've got the one that buffs aberrants and Genestealers, and you've got the one that buffs stuff coming out of deep strike, so you get an army roll for 2 turns of the game. And then I don't even know. There's one for Brood Brothers, which
right.
I don't even know if it buffs guard, but no one plays that. And then there's Xenocreed, which I'm also not too sure what it does. I think it buffs like acolytes and things. So this is actually going to buff your whole army, which is pretty cool.
Well, and I was actually
something we usually get.
I was thinking about it. I mean, compared to Brood Brothers, where there's like nothing for the guard, there's actually quite a lot in here for the Tyranids. I think it is perfectly reasonable to take close to 1,000 points of Tyranids because of the buffs that they get too. It may not be quite the optimal way, but it's not stupid.
No, absolutely. And and a lot of the Tyranid units that you're taking are kind of like the pressure stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you can totally do something where like you kind of build a little bit of like a Genestealer cult gun line, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then have your pressure coming out of the Tyranids, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. I don't know if it's thematic, but I mean, I don't know that it isn't either, right? It's the final day.
Exactly.
Everybody's just going at it, right? So
yeah, doing what you do best. And the thing is also, I mean, if you think about what you're losing, because often it's like, when you're taking allies, you have to think about what you're losing that would make that data sheet good. So, if you take an Imperial Knight in an Imperial army, you're losing their rerolls and you're losing their access to their strats and all of that. Canis gets a free strat, so it's just a CP reroll every time. With this, okay, what are you losing? You're losing, Shadow in the Warp, and okay, like GSC doesn't really need to battle shock you to win. They can
we've got the OC.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there are just a lot of generically super useful Tyranid data sheets that fall. I mean, lictors. Everybody would be happy to have lictors. There's no army that would say no to that data sheet at that point cost, or even around that point cost.
Yeah, if you look at the points cost, right, that's right where a lot of the GSC characters are, and just their units in general are around that points cost. And you're like, so I can upgrade this character I was going to take. I can, instead of a Sanctus, I can now take a Lictor.
Yeah.
Who also isn't a character, so I'm not giving up Assassinate now.
Right.
Like, cool. So, that's not bad. I think I'll probably do it. And I don't know yet how the change is going to be, like, for Keller Morphs. Them going to a 9-inch versus 12-inch for their reactive shoot and move.
Sure.
Maybe we're dropping those and we're taking Lictors, Neurolictors, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And we got our points right there.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, it is now not impossible to kill a Keller Morph, and they don't do nearly as much as a Lictor does, aside from like not dying, right? So
yeah. I mean, the thing they did was they didn't really score points; they just were annoying, and they're still annoying, but less. So
yeah.
All
right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I know it's a little bit late where you are, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. Happy to do it. It's been a good chatting.
Yeah. Thank you. And, if you're still hanging around as we were talking about Necron's units in a GSC video, I really appreciate you. Please comment, tell us how you plan to not use this detachment, or you think it's the bee's knees, whatever it may be. Like it, subscribe, all that stuff. It does help. And have a good night, Jake.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Bye.